Hunter x Hunter, chapter 386, begins with the, confirmation between Theta and Solkov at the fact that Prince, um, what she could call it, Sardinic, the illusion or the presence or whatever Theta saw when she had tried to gun him down, ending his potential reign. There's no traces of blood from the head wound, despite the fact that Theta knows it was so real. But that doesn't make any sense, as Theta still fired off a round. It's a very confusing situation, and it reeks of an ability that goes almost surreally far beyond Nen. Because it's almost as if reality itself warped. It's a very similar situation, and anyone who knows JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, it's a very similar situation with one stand user who had the ability to erase effects of certain things. So you might fire at them, think that you shot them, but the effects of that gunshot are completely erased, causing, you have the cause but not the effect, and then you have the aftermath, as if this thing just never happened, despite everything proving that something led up to it. So it's a very interesting situation, and the fact that Tagashi is going in this direction with these various princes' abilities is making them seem even more and more overpowered and unstoppable. We also pick up with Melody and Sumidori. And Sumidori makes it clear that they're just basically interrogating Melody in order to get some information about what exactly happened. Since we had the whole situation with the two princes trying to escape, and some information coming to light about that, the situation with Kacho and Fugetsu, and the fact that the prime minister had killed himself and left a note about why he tried to get them to escape, making it seem like he forced them. You know, um, Sumidori's organization is looking into it further, but Melody catches on that Sumidori is more or less keeping her protected because a lot of princes have taken an interest in Melody and the power that she displayed that caused all of them to enter this almost serene and tranquil state and just kind of knock them out to a certain degree. This is more or less a time for Melody to kind of rethink her next step in what to do. Meanwhile, we pick back up with Hulkenberg and his people, in the situation in which one of his men has possessed the body of one of Benjamin's men. And they're just kind of testing things out, seeing, if, what's going on with the man's who has possessing the other guy's body, if he's still conscious, where the person one where the consciousness of Benjamin's troop has gone, so on and so forth. They're just trying to analyze this power as a whole and how exactly it works. And ultimately, one of the decisions that they come down to is just to test the full extent of what they're able to do. And, he just kind of, gets the one dude possessing the other to just find his resolve in what they choose to do next, which is very interesting. As with us picking up with Lazarus, Prince Lazarus and Basho, and all of them, the guard Benjamin's man comes in with the other one who is guarding Prince Lazarus, not knowing what the situation is. He comes in, and The one of Benjamin's forces that's being possessed, screams out, "Long live Prince Benjamin!" and he shoots himself in the end, in the head, causing a massive panic because it's just a really out there situation. Um, and Benjamin even kind of notes on this with the fact that it's just like obviously Benjamin has gained some greater power and some form of resolve, and this makes him a lot more dangerous than ever before because they don't know the full extent of what he's able to do. Meanwhile, back with Hulkenberg, we pick up with his, you know, associate awakening and him interrogating him just in order to get some information and to find out if his man has regained his control over his body. So Hulkenberg's not playing around with this. He's trying to grasp the full and entire scope of what his guardian spirit beast can actually do. Unlike with Benjamin, who hasn't really done too much with his own guardian spirit beast, which leaves a bit of intimidation as to what could possibly come out of that, as we haven't seen the full extent of what it's capable. We then cut back to Karapika and the nun training he's had going on, and they're proceeding on to the divination test. And he makes it known that, they'll be going into a separate room set. No, that way not everybody will have the information on what each other can do. Naturally, some of the men are just like, you know, that's bullshit. We should be able to see. How will we know if he even works, and so on and so forth. And Kurapika just lays it right there all out on the line, saying it's just like, look, we're only doing this as compensation, maybe to get a little bit of an edge up ourselves, you know, because ultimately we're working for, the least qualified prince out there, be pretty easy for the rest of y'all to kill a baby. So, gaining some information on what you guys can do is the compensation enough for us. And if you ultimately don't learn anything about Ned, it's no skin off our nose if you want to quit here on out, which is a pretty ballsy move on his part. And two of Benjamin's men who have come in order to get a grasp on the whole situation, just chat amongst themselves about that whole situation in order to kind of figure something out, because they're still going around trying to kill as many princes as possible in order to give Benjamin the edge. We then pick up with Serdinik meeting up with Salkov to finish continuous training. But it becomes obvious to Salkov that Serdinik has come so far in his training to the point where, you know, all it will take is actual combat to really just hammer in the final things that Serdinik needs to know. He's learned so much in such a little amount of time. We saw the progression of Gon and Kalua during the whole, Tower of Heaven thing, which was fairly fast, but this is insanity right here. And it becomes very obvious that Sardinik is growing wildly out of control, and soon he will become this just unstoppable force, far beyond anything that Theta or Solkov could even deal with. And towards the end of the chapter, Sardinik makes this cryptic comment that he has come to change his state of mind, finding two-faced women cute, which is obviously a reference to Theta, I have to assume. But what that exactly means is very far beyond my grasp. Because if you notice in the beginning chapter, Theta no longer has that cut and the, deformation to her face anymore. I don't know if that's simply become from bed rest or if it means that something has taken place in her body as well now. Something that will possibly tie her, incredibly to Sardinik now. Something very odd is going to happen between those two, and I'm interested to see where that goes. So that's another relationship that is quickly developing. And, Sardine continues to just grow far too rapidly and unnaturally. And just where it'll end can only end in misery for everyone else. But hey, tell me your thoughts in the comment section below. What do you think about the insanity that is Sardinic's power? And where do you think it'll end up? What do you think about Hulkenberg and his power now? Not to mention the machinations of Benjamin basically going around and assassinating as many of his siblings as possible. That's still going on as well. So there's just so much scheming and dirty dealing going around, and just growth in various different ways that just are going to change the course of this whole thing. But if you liked what I had to say about this chapter, feel free to subscribe and leave me a like or a dislike depending on how you felt. And I will see you next time. Thanks for joining me.